Hey all, so today we're going to look at part 3 of these sets of exercises where we're going to work on trying to improve our independence and some improvement in creativity in using our left hands within a beat. So the lessons today, they are going to be a little bit more advanced. So if you haven't looked at lessons 1 and 2 or parts 1 and 2 in this series, then please check those out first. The links to those will be in the description below. Okay, so let's jump into it. First exercise, this is going to be just one measure of 4/4, but as you can see, it's all phrased as triplets. Right hand's going to be on the ride. Left hand is going to be going back and forth between the hi-hat and snare. As I mentioned in the previous part of this series, we're going to want to make sure that we play on the top, not on the side of the hi-hat here, because we want to make sure that we're not having a volume coming out of the hi-hat louder than what's on the ride. The two hands are just going to be basically alternating back and forth the whole time, and we're just moving the left hand back and forth between the hi-hat and the snare. Okay, so exercise number 2. This is going to build on top of what we just did. We're moving the left hand around a lot more now, right? So we're going to go hi-hat, snare, and then we're going to go to the two top toms, back to the snare, and then we're going to do one little interesting thing at the end. When we go back to the hi-hat at the end of the measure, we're actually going to do a little bit of a single-handed roll there. Okay, we're going to start to change things up a little bit. We're going to have the same sort of style movement that we just saw in exercise 2, where we're moving the left hand around a lot between the toms. But now we're going to be switching to straight 16th notes instead of 8th note triplets. For this one, bass drum is going to be doing straight 16ths underneath. Right hand is going to basically be on the ride the whole time. Left hand is going to be going between the snare and the different toms. But as you can see, when we get to the end of the measure, when we get to beat 4, we break the pattern a little bit to do tom 3 and tom 4 together. Now, if you don't have 4 toms, that's cool. Just transpose all the toms up 1, and what was going to be tom 1, you keep that as tom 1. Okay, so on to exercise number 4, and actually this next set of exercises, they all build on top of each other. So these 3 all build on top. Usually when I do these, I do a lot of kind of extra work with the toms or maybe going to the hi-hat. Now we're going to focus on actually going between a lot of different cymbals. So as you can see, there's all sorts of little notations that I have little lines above the staff. What's really going on here is this. We're going to start off. Right hand is going to be, for me, it's going to be on my 18-inch crash here. And that's going to be, beats 1 and 2. Then I'm going to be alternating my right hand and my left between my china and my stack. As you can see, I'm doing now a 16th note triplet. So remember when we started off, we were doing just straight triplets the whole time. Then we went to straight 16ths. Now this measure is actually going to be kind of making us switch back and forth. So we're going to be starting off straight eighths to a triplet feel. Coming out of that 16th note triplet, we're just going to resolve by hitting the china one extra time. That gets us through the first measure. Second measure is very similar, but instead of doing the china and the stack, I'm going to be doing my two splashes here. So I just have a 10-inch splash and a 6-inch, and that's just going to be my right hand and my left hand. So we're basically repeating this phrasing between the first and second measure, but we're just moving where our hands are, which cymbals we're playing. Okay, so for number 5, like I said, we're going to continue on what we were doing before. So before, remember, we were doing beat 3, china and stack, and then we were resolving that by just doing a quarter note hit on the china. And that gave us a little bit of time to breathe, to kind of get into the next part of the beat, right? Well, now we're going to complicate things by having beat 4. We're not going to resolve into the china now. We're going to play 16th note triplets on the snare. For the second measure, we're going to actually change things around even more. Remember beat 3 of the second measure? That was with the splashes, and then we were resolving on beat 4. Well, now instead, beat 3 is going to be the snare, and then we're pushing those splashes to beat 4. To summarize, we have the 2 beats on the 18-inch crash here. That's setting things up, and then we're doing china stack, snare. And then the second time through, we're going to do the setup, snare, then the splashes. Okay, so for this last exercise today, we're going to make things even more complicated by having 4 sets of 16th note triplets in a row. We're not going to use the 18-inch crash as a setup anymore. Now this is going to be kind of like an in-between phrase sort of thing. So remember before when we had the 2 measures, we were doing chinas and the snares and the splashes, and we kind of flipped things around a little bit. we have that same sort of paradigm going on here. So we're going to start off China stack, snare, splashes, snare. So that gets us through the first measure. That's all 16th note triplets. Then we're going to go to the crash or crash ride that you have. That's going to be kind of our way of bridging to the second half. Second half is now going to be snare first, splashes, snare, chinas. So it's almost like we're unwinding, right? We're basically playing that phrasing, that pattern in the reverse order of sets. Of course, we're not flipping the direction that our hands are going, right? So again, China stack, snare, splashes, snare, our bridging pattern, snare, splashes, snare, China stack, bridging pattern. One thing I really want to say as like a word of advice here, definitely you have to play these to a click, because I think you'll find that as you're going through, as you're like trying to like get up and down and move back and forth, that you may be rushing a part of the section to try to like move your hand over, right? You might be like trying to like move your hands together. You need to be able to be finishing, say, this last snare hit here while you start moving your right hand over, right? Same thing on every single part of the phrasing. So it really forces you to be able to keep your left hand going on the pattern while your other hand is moving in preparation to the new spot. So I hope you guys found that useful and perhaps challenging. You know, some of these beats are things that I've played before in songs that I've worked on, and they have, especially some of these later ones, they were a bit of a challenge for me. And, you know, these issues that I mentioned, you know, making sure you play on the top of the hat, you know, having to make sure that you work out the 16th note phrasing and moving the hands to a click as to avoid the little in-between phrasing rushing. Those are issues that I came across myself, and that you know, I just had to kind of figure out what the problem was and work it out. So I hope that instead of just, you know, blowing through these exercises, you do spend a little bit of time and you do try to really work out the feel and the motions of things, because I think that that part, that aspect of things, the learning the feel, is a lot more beneficial to you long term than just learning the exercises. I do have other content coming out as well, other lesson videos, of course, but cymbal reviews, stick reviews, all sorts of other good stuff. And so if you don't want to miss out on that stuff, then, don't forget to subscribe. And until next time, peace.